Hey everybody, it's Bill Slocum. And in this video, I'm going to talk with you about creating a hosted feature service using ArcMap. But first things first, a little disclaimer. Neither the National Park Service nor NC State University endorses or recommends any commercial products, processes, or services. This material may not be used for advertising or product endorsement purposes. This material is intended for educational purposes only. Neither the U.S. government nor NC State University warrants or assumes any legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, completeness, or usefulness of any information, apparatus, product, or process disclosed. Now on to the fun stuff, creating a hosted feature service using ArcMap. Well, it all starts in ArcMap. And remember what a feature service is. A feature service allows you to gain access to the underlying attributes and that feature geometry. So in ArcMap, some things that you need to be considerate of are the layers within your ArcMap document, the symbology of those layers, the visible attributes, the attribute aliases, and the map document properties, because all of these will be very helpful in creating your service and also providing information to your audience. The second part of the workflow is to sign into ArcGIS Online through the ArcMap interface and to share your map as a service. Now, to share your map as a service, you must be an NPS publisher access. If you do not have that access, please contact your regional coordinator and they can help you with that, gaining that access. And finally, the last part of the workflow is to check your feature service within the ArcGIS Online environment. So please remember the URL to get to the National Park Service, ArcGIS Online for Organizations. URL is nps.maps.arcgis.com. So let's get to ArcMap. Now you'll see here within my ArcMap document, I have two layers. Now this is Colonial National Historical Park in Virginia, and this data was supplied by the Lands Division. And I'm using it for demonstration purposes only. Now, you'll see here that I have two layers within my map document. I have a polygon layer that has a fill associated with it. And if I use the identify tool and click on that layer, you can see that I have my attributes here. And the same if I click on this polygon representation, but no fill. I still can click on a polygon and get those attributes. So what I want to do in my workflow is I want to publish this to ArcGIS Online. Now, when you publish a map document to ArcGIS Online, all the layers within that ArcMap document are going to be layers within your feature service. I typically like to publish one layer at a time. That way it is easily recognizable, and I can use that layer in other ArcGIS Online web maps and web mapping applications. So what I'm going to do is I want my audience and I want my use to have this particular layer, just the outline here with no fill. So I'm going to remove that, and I'm also going to save my map document, and I'm going to put in an LN. Now this is a polygon layer, but in my workflow, it tells me that it's a linear representation at this point with no fill. You'll see that I've got my park name in there. I have what type of data layer it is, the boundary. I'm saying it's a line, but it is a polygon, and this is demonstration purposes. So I'm just going to save that. So I've got my layers in. Now I've got my symbology. So I've got the outline of my park, so it's transparent. And I'm going to look at the attributes. I'm going to open up the attribute table here, and you can see that there are a lot of attributes, but I'm going to narrow that down because I don't want my audience to have access to all of those. Now, please notice that in my attribute table, there are asterisks beside some of these fields. Always leave those visible. ArcGIS Online uses those attributes just like your ArcMap document does. But I'm going to turn off all of the others, and I'm going to leave name on. I'm not worried about too much other stuff, and I'm going to leave the acreage on and the shape length and the shape area down here. Now, so those are the attributes now that you can see that would be available when I publish this as a feature service. But I want to make this a little more user-friendly, and I'm going to say name and make it proper case instead of all uppercase. So the point here is when I set these aliases, they take, it shows up in my attribute table. So when I publish this, and we'll see it later, only these attributes will be available. So I'm going to close that down. Another item I want you to pay attention to are the map document properties. A lot of this will translate over into ArcGIS Online. I don't have a title, so I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to copy the Colonial NHP Park boundary and paste that up there for this demonstration. And I do have a thumbnail. You see, I'll delete it and make a new thumbnail to reference just this. Make sure it's appropriate. Click apply to make sure that it all takes place, and click OK. Now, step 2 of my workflow. I'm going to sign in to ArcGIS Online. So I'm going to go to File and Sign In. I'm going to sign in with my ArcGIS Online for Organizations URL. And again, that URL is NPS. And I'm going to say Continue. And I'm going to choose National Park Service. And now I have signed in here. Now, because I've previously signed in before, it has kept some of my credentials. You may be required to type in your PIN associated with your PIV card, but you know how to do that through your other accesses from National Park Service. So you can see that I am actually signed in. So the next part of my workflow is to share this as a service. So I'm going to go to File, Share As a Service. And because I'm logged into ArcGIS Online with my National Park Service credentials, I'm going to click Service. I'm going to publish this service. If I already had a park boundary, I could overwrite that service if I wanted to. But I'm going to publish my service and say Next. And I'm going to choose my hosted services with the National Park Service. Now you can see here that my map document name has appeared as my service name. My workflow says I'm going to leave it this way. It's very informative to me. But your service name should have something that is meaningful, not Test 1 or Boundary 1 or My First Service. Make your service name meaningful. And I'm going to click Continue. Now this is going to bring up another dialog box. The most important item right now I want you to look at is the capabilities, and feature service is selected. That's going to give me access to the feature geometry and all of my attributes. A tiled mapping service would not supply that. It would be an image that would come across. Look at the item description. You can see here that through my map document properties, this is available. Now, there's an access and use constraints. You should type into your web browser National Park Service or NPS GIS Distribution Liability Statement. When you click on that, you will get the distribution liability statement, and you should type it in here. This is for demonstration, so I'm going to type this is for demonstration only. And that is going to translate over into ArcGIS Online. Now, if I wanted to share this with one of the groups that I am working with, I could actually take that opportunity and do that here. I'm not going to do that in this video. But I do have feature access, and I have other options here that you can allow, And I will go ahead and check those. Create means you'll be allowed to create features or delete features or update features. I'm not going to worry about sync for offline. And I have my item description. I'm going to hit the Analyze button. Now you'll notice that I don't have a base map in here. You can't publish a base map because you already have access to those in ArcGIS Online. If I move the Service Editor dialog box, you'll see that I have a few warnings, and that's all, and a couple of messages here. Now, if you have errors, it will not publish. I am willing to live with the consequences of these two errors. And one of those is the data is going to be published up to ArcGIS Online. So I'm going to go ahead and click Publish. Now, this is going to take a few minutes, so I'm going to explain what's happening here. This data is being packaged up and copied up to ArcGIS Online. It's not associated with the data that is currently on my desktop that I'm working with now. So that means I have data in ArcGIS Online and I have data on my desktop. It's good practice to keep those data on your desktop as well. In case there's an issue with ArcGIS Online, you don't have access, or the system is having some issues that are being worked on, you would still have access to your desktop data. But be careful not to have two different data sets that you're working with. So this is going to spin for a little while, so I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, now that you see the service has been published successfully, that's great. I'll click OK. The dialog box will go away. I'm just going to save my map document here one more time. And let's go to ArcGIS Online. Now, I've logged in here. You can see I've logged in with my credentials. And in my content at the root folder at the home here, you can see that my layer has published. Now, let's take a look at this. I'm going to click on the feature layer here, and you can see that the layer name that I had set as my map document has come over. I could change that if I wanted to. Remember, I made a thumbnail? Well, now I understand that my data looks as my park boundary here, and I could edit that thumbnail if I wanted to. I've got a description which came from my map document. And the terms of use, you see how I have terms of use here. This is for demonstration only, but in my web browser, I did search for the National Park Service GIS Data Distribution Liability Statement. I'm going to go ahead and copy that, because you should always have your terms of use in here. So I've got that. You can see that it is a polygon layer. If I had more than one layer, it would list those for me. And I'm going to say save. And you can see here that my information bar is moving. So it says add a longer description, and I could increase the content of my item information. Let's take a look at the data. They've got this quick tab up here we've talked about. Well, remember, I left on the name and the acres. It took out some of those other attributes, but that's okay, because I see exactly what I want. I could come in here and look at adding a field. There's a lot more items, options that you do have here if you wanted to use them. But all I need is the acreage and the name. What's the data look like? Well, we click the visualization tab. And you can see here that it's going to open up in a map viewer, and I can see that my park boundary looks as you would expect. When I click on one of the items, you can see that my information will pop up, gives me the name and the acreage of that polygon. You can get some other statistics here as in usage. Well, I've looked at it today. and some settings. Now, here is something that's a very good setting that you might want to set. Prevent this item from being accidentally deleted. Well, that's a good time. It's a good time to check that because I don't want to have to republish this because I accidentally deleted. So I'm going to go ahead and save that change. All right, and go back to my item overview here. So you can see that I went from ArcMap with setting my number of layers. I just have one, set my symbology, updated my attribute field, set my map document properties, which allowed that to translate over into my ArcGIS Online feature layer. Now, there's one more quick thing I want to do. Let me go back to my content, and I store my data in folders. So I am going to move this data into my how-to videos folder. It's that simple. So now when I go back to that particular folder, you can see that my hosted layer is now within my my folder within my content, and I want to make that boundary one of my favorites because the park boundary is something that you use quite often. All right, thanks a lot. That's how you create a hosted feature service in ArcGIS Online using ArcMap. Hope you have a wonderful day.